Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to BLFD 2. So in the first one, I noticed that I spent a lot of time talking about base identification, what to look for, and where to blizzard, but only brushed on the subjects of the Sui and the Lavaloon portion. So today, that's what we're going to be focusing on. Now when it comes to our Sui, there are two options here. We have the split Sui and then the combined Sui. Typically, in my experience, I've found that the combined Sui is what will be used the majority of the time. The difference between the two is for a split Sui, you have compartments that aren't as highly concentrated with high damage defenses, and one hero is enough to go take it out, whereas using two to take out a compartment that may not be that strong would simply be a waste. You'd be leaving base open that could have been taken out by your heroes. With the combined method, it's where an area is more highly concentrated with high damage defenses, and one hero would just simply not be enough. You need them working together to clear out a compartment. Now when it comes to the Sui, generally speaking, you want your ice golem out in front because you want that freeze effect to be used on those heavy hitting defenses so that your heroes can clear through them without taking as much damage. Now this does take a lot of practice considering the ice golems are very slow. Oftentimes the king will get out in front, but that's okay because he does have a lot of HP. And with the use of that Phoenix, it's okay because he will live for about 7 to 8 seconds longer. And for that royal champion, very rarely will you have to send her into that same compartment that your king and queen are working on. Most of the time it will be the compartment right next to it, and most of the time you send her in and then start your Lavaloon portion very shortly after. Now you don't want to just sit there and watch your heroes and let them die. You want them to clear that compartment, and then you want to start your attack. The attack will go much smoother. You have a much higher chance of tripling if your Lavaloon portion is working into the base at the same time that your heroes are pushing into their next compartment. So now that your heroes have put in some work, they've cleared out a compartment, you're ready to start your Lavaloon portion. Now with this, there are a couple things that I want to touch on. Generally speaking, if you're a player similar to me, or a majority of players that probably play this game, you've been using spam armies for a majority of your time. And with spam armies, you just drag your finger across the screen, you full send them in, and you manage your spells and hope for the best. That is not the case with this army. This army requires a little bit of thinking with your deployment. You cannot just spam your balloons in. Instead, I want you to think about sprinkling, sending 2, 3, 4 balloons to each defense. You don't just want to drag your finger in a line and spam them in. You want to be methodical with your deployment. Now with that said, let's talk about the importance of the hound. For the hound, this may sound a little dumb to some of you, but I want you to just think of it as an air golem. You want the hound to be deployed in such a way that it will fly across as much map as possible. Reason for that being, you want it to soak up as many traps as possible while distracting as many defenses as possible on the way. Now if there's one thing I want you guys to take away from this video, it's the word patience. And by that, I mean you have to be patient with your balloon deployment. So once you deploy your first hound, once you see that it has distracted certain defenses, I want you to sprinkle in your balloons to go take out those defenses. And as it flies across the map more, you're going to sprinkle in more and more balloons to take out those defenses that it is distracting. Not only that, but your balloon deployment will come in waves. So you're going to send in your first hound, and then you'll have a couple of clusters of balloons in behind it, typically followed by your Grand Warden. And once they work their way in a little bit, they'll clear out a little bit of that compartment, then you'll have your next wave of balloons with your next hound to distract. That is where the patience is important, because if you're anything like me, you're going to want to deploy all of your troops right away, but you need to save those balloons. You need to have some to pick off those outer edge defenses. This is very crucial for keeping your main group of balloons, your Grand Warden, pushing in towards that more center compartment of the base, which is typically where all those heavy hitting defenses are that will absolutely melt you if you are sloppy, if you are impatient with your deployment. Now this is just something that takes a little bit of practice. This is something that I myself even still struggle with, but like I mentioned a little bit ago, patience. Patience is the key to this attack. Now, ideally speaking, you want to catch one of your hounds in that Warden ability. This just helps to soak up as many traps as possible, to soak up as many defenses as possible, to allow our balloons the best chance to work in and clear things while that hound is distracting. Now with that Warden ability, this is probably the second most important part of the video. Most of the time you're going to have an enemy air defending hero, either that Archer Queen or that Royal Champion, still alive on one portion of the base where your balloons need to push through. And this is where those headhunters come into play. But since this is a heavily concentrated air army, you really aren't going to have anything tanking those ground defenses. So say a base has ground expos or cannons or mortars still up, the only thing that they will be targeting is those headhunters. So it is absolutely critical that when you know you're going to pop your Warden ability, you send in those headhunters and catch them in that Warden ability so that they can go take out that enemy air defending hero. If you can't take out that hero, it's very, very hard to triple a base. That hero will just pop off on your balloons. One by one, they'll go down. An attack can go from looking really good to really bad in a matter of 5 to 10 seconds if that hero stays up. So with all those points in mind, I'm now going to play you guys a replay, and I want you guys to watch closely and see if you can understand why I attack this base the way I do, why my timing is the way it is, why my hound deployment, my balloon deployment, my Warden ability, all of that stuff is the way it is. See if you guys can understand that. Alright guys, that's going to be it for today's video. If there's anything I didn't cover or anything that I did not explain in depth enough for you and you still have questions about it, please comment them down below. I do read all comments and I will be sure to include them in the next video. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.